All right.
Hey, welcome to the Art of Giving. Uh, Albert Einstein had this quote, and we caught it yesterday. It says, "The value of a man should be seen in what he gives, and not what he is able to receive." I just love that quote, and it's really kind of encapsulates what Marc is about. Welcome to the Art of Giving, celebrating giving in our everyday lives. Today's guest is Marc Ensign. He's been an accomplished musician, writer, husband, and he's a great dad. He spent many years on Broadway playing bass for the show Rent. Now he's on a mission to save the internet. Really, the whole whopping internet. His writing has been featured in publications like Huffington Post, Forbes, and CNN. You can follow Marc at markensign.com. And this show is especially brought to you by the Significance series. The road to significance, sorry, I can't even say that word. Significance is paved by making others significant. A special thanks to Cherie and Sanjeev Manifest for their tireless work in the Significance series and helping with this event. Thanks for coming on the show, Marc.
Sure. Thanks, Troy. I gotta, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that up. You opened up with Einstein, and now everything I say is going to be stupid from here on out.
Well, yeah. Well, he does have that one stupid quote, I think, right? Stupidity. There's not a limit to stupidity. I was reading that one too, but I made sure not to bring that one in.
Even that's brilliant.
Well, I know you have this new book, Unbreakable, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but kind of bring everybody into kind of your story and what you're about and what you're doing. I know one of the most important things in your life is kind of helping other people out, but even more so than that is, there's this book that you're going to be writing. We'll tease that, kind of like a radio tease. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but is your kids and your family. And I know that was part of a transition that you made from, getting off the road and when you played in Rent, and that was an important thing to get back with your family. But just talk about your story a little bit, and we can lead on into the book.
Sure. As far as like where I began my life as a musician, and it was back in 1999 actually 98, that I had scored this, the dream gig. I'd gone to school for music. I didn't know how to, do anything other than, be a musician, and so I didn't have a choice. And I had this ultimate dream, this 10-year goal of getting this gig on Broadway. And so about 2 years later, a year and a half later, I had landed it, and it was, it came at a time in my life where I was too stupid to realize that not everything is always possible. And so I just kept running at it and hitting this wall until I broke through it and got to the next one. And it's kind of what the book is about. And so I got this gig that I wasn't supposed to get, but I got because of my own tenacity and unwillingness to give up. And then and I did that for a long time, and I started a marketing company because I was really kind of found a love for marketing, and I did all these things. And then I realized a couple months ago, over the past few years, I lost sight of that person that didn't realize that anything really could be possible. And so I was telling somebody this story. I dusted it off. I completely forgot about it, and I started telling somebody this story about how I got the gig on Rent. And how how I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to get it. I just went for it, and I started thinking about when the last time I did that was, and I couldn't remember. And so and not to say that I hadn't had any level of success over the past 10 years or whatever. It's just I didn't run at anything. I wasn't running at anything as hard as I was then. And so I decided, I was like, well, I need to write this story down to remind myself, and so that's what I did. And I had a couple people read it, and they got so much out of it. This is great. This really kind of lit them on fire. And so I decided to move forward and just actually give the book away on my website, just to show people that through my story that anything really is possible. And so I kind of opened the book with the fact I wrote this book for myself. I really didn't write it for anybody else. But I'm hoping that you can get something out of it. And it's just been really a lesson for me. I read it all the time just because I want to be that guy. I always want to remember that guy, be that guy. So that's kind of where that all came from. As far as what I do, I don't know where it started, but somewhere along the line, I thought that I was meant to save the world somehow. Like, this idea as a kid that somehow the world was going to spin differently because I was walking on the planet. And it just, yeah, I was absent from school. I think the day they told us that that wasn't true, that we just have to go do stuff. And so I never let go of that. And so there's always everything that I try to do, I always want to do it with this sense of service to others, and try to do something for somebody else. I mean, if you look at my blog has this like kind of, I don't know, self-help-y kind of overtone to it that is interesting, because it's not just me telling you how to live your life. I'm trying to figure out how to live mine, and and we're all kind of going along for the ride. Me and everybody that gets to read it, and so it's just kind of like this place that I love to be. This place of constantly trying to improve myself.
So it's kind of like this idea where you get up on stage, I know you speak a lot, and you basically tell everybody that you don't have it figured out either. You're trying to figure it out.
Right. But it's true. It's because I feel like as much as I love Tony Robbins and all these incredibly successful personal development speakers who I've studied for so many years, when you're in the thick of it, it's really hard to connect with somebody that's the $500 million man that has it all figured out, it's just really hard to connect with that. Whereas, I think I'm coming from a place that's more of, I totally get what you're going through, because I'm going through it right now too. And here's some things that that I'm working on. Here's how I'm figuring it out. And here's some things I did in the past that maybe you can use. And it becomes a conversation. It's not just me and a bunch of followers or readers. It's just us, and we're just talking, and we're connecting, and they have this community. It's this idea that we're not, it's not my, my soapbox, and you get to listen. This is just us kind of hanging out, and we're all just a bunch of friends. We just happen to be hanging out over my house today. Tomorrow we'll hang out over your house. It's a community.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a friend of mine named Chris Morris, and he suffers from epilepsy and some other things, and has a daughter that the same thing. But he talks about his story, and especially with chronic illness, and he says part of this idea is, he says, when I share my story, I give someone the opportunity to be second, to tell their story, to invite them in, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about, right? You're saying, hey, this is what's going on with me, and these are some of my fears, and then somebody else goes, oh, wow, I feel the same way, and you're able to bring in that conversation.
Right, exactly. I mean, I had written a post probably, it must have been 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago, I don't even know, called Pretty Ugly, and it was this story about when I was a kid. I was in 3rd grade, and my mom and dad had moved us to a new town in the middle of the school year. And so, I'm like 8 years old. I got this really weird curly hair and thick brown glasses and braces and buck teeth. Like, it was just, it looks like I just got hit in the face with something. And and so I show up on my first day of school, and within the first couple of hours of being in the school, one of the popular kid in school comes walking over to me, and she says, "Hey, you're pretty ugly," and started laughing and ran away. And if I was older, I would have probably just thrown it out as being, just a stupid kid or whatever. But because I was 8, and because there was nobody there to kind of back me up, because I didn't have any friends, I wasn't there long enough for anybody to say, don't listen to her. She does that to everybody, or something. Like, I didn't have any of that. So I internalized it, and I owned it. And now all of a sudden, I became I built this fear of rejection. I became very shy, very introverted. I kind of crawled into my own shell, and for 20 or 30 years, like, my life had been affected by it. I saw life through this lens, called Pretty Ugly, and so I kind of figured out a way out. Like I come to grips with it. I learned, I had traced like all this stuff back to that one incident. And so I decided that was going to be a phrase of empowerment for me. So when I get nervous, it's pretty ugly, and I'm like, I will never allow something like that to control me again. And so it became this thing. I wrote a blog post about it, telling that story. And at least once a week, I get one or two people that reach out privately and just say, "Hey, I have a pretty ugly story. Here's my story."
Mm.
And it's and sometimes people are just like, just very supportive, and here's my story. You weren't alone that whole time. And other times people are, "Thank you for sharing this. I always thought I was alone." And on both sides of that coin, it's just so cool to get that kind of reaction from people, people to connect with, and for people to learn. And so I decided I was going to start a kind of like a charity kind of thing, to bring awareness for kids to know that they're not alone with this kind of thing. So I've just started this thing now called the Pretty Ugly Project. And so, I got the domain, thepretyuglyproject.com, and I'm just putting everything together. And I want to start collecting people's stories, and and start teaching kids that this is, building their self-esteem by you don't have to internalize this. You don't have to live off of this comment that somebody has made about you or for you, or whether it's a parent or a student or a teacher. We all have something that we unknowingly, that's kind of changed the trajectory of our lives. And so this kind of gives you the freedom to come out and just dust it off and just let it go.
So it's like my dad. When I was growing up, my dad always told me he would use that saying about sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. And he always reminded me, he says, words do hurt you, and they can't hurt you. And he says it's important how we use our words. And just talk about that. Just this idea of using words, and you're a writer, and how important it is to not only use your words in a wise way, but not only sharing your story, but to be an encouragement to others.
Yeah, I think that as far as the sticks and stones thing, like if you tripped over a curb and broke your leg, you wouldn't tell somebody to walk it off.
Right.
So why would you do that for when somebody really hurts you emotionally, or verbally, or abuses you in that way? Sometimes those are the biggest hurts, because your leg can heal in a couple of weeks. That feeling inside doesn't go away, not unless you're proactive about it. And so I catch myself all the time. Like I certainly want to make no bones about it. Like, I am not preaching as far as like, hey, here's how you have to use your words. I'm devastated by a lot of things that I say unknowingly to people that I love. Sometimes I'm just like, what the hell was I thinking? I just come from, or I'm in a mood, or I'm overwhelmed, or I'm busy, or I wasn't listening, or whatever. So for me, it's a constant state of trying to be aware, as much as, let me perfect this little thing called communication. Like, there's just no perfecting that.
So it's a process, huh? You haven't arrived yet, even though you have a nice website and wrote a couple books.
No, I don't, and I don't think I ever will. I hope I won't. I don't think I ever will, because there's just so much out there to learn and to do, and to figure out.
Well, and I know you talk about this idea of giving in your story unbreakable. Let's talk about that and why it's important. I mean, and there was a transition there where you decided in the middle of this kind of the story, you're going after this big dream that you have, to switch that kind of switch and say, I'm not going to make it about me. But you can lead into that and talk about that story, because this is really cool. We had interviewed you, Stan Bush and I, in I think it was February of this year, and kind of heard this story about a bass player with a phone book and a restraining order. I think not in all that, but I'd really love to hear about that, and just how that came about.
Sure. Well, I decided early on that I wanted to work on Broadway. I don't know why. I'd never gone to a Broadway show at that point. I just knew I was good at reading music, and I was a good player, and I kind of felt like it was the pinnacle of, I needed something big to shoot for. So I was like, well, that seems pretty good. Like, geez, a musician with a regular gig seemed like a good idea. So I was like, that's what I'll do. I mean, I can't imagine it gets much better than working on Broadway. So I decided to throw myself at that, and began to listen to a lot of the soundtracks and study it, and immerse myself in it a little bit. And I decided that I was going to start. I had to start by talking to people that were on Broadway and start befriending all these folks that were going to help get me there. And the problem was it was 1998ish or 86 probably by the time I was starting. So there really wasn't an internet other than America Online, and so you had message boards and porn, and that was pretty much it. And I don't think that was going to get me there. So I decided to I had to take another route, and I would drive into the city every night and try to go to as many theaters as possible and see if I could steal a playbill. The idea was because in the playbill they had all of the names of all the musicians, and once I did that, it took a couple weeks, probably took about 2 or 3 weeks. I got every playbill that I could find, and I went to the union and asked them if I could join, and they had told me that I wasn't able to. I had to have a gig in order to join the union, but you also had to join the union to get a gig.
Classic.
And so yeah, all right. I went back home. I came back into the city with a wire cutter and went to the train station and went to a phone booth, those boxy things that they had before for cell phones. I feel so old telling this story.
Yeah.
And so I went to the phone booth. I clipped up. I took a wire cutter to the chain that went around the phone book and stole a Manhattan phone book. And from there, I was able to look up probably about 50 or 60% of the people in the playbills, and I started writing them letters. I included demo tapes, and I had made a logo for myself, and I mean, it was a really nice package. Like you were not going to get a nicer package from a bass player, like I spent weeks on it. I sent them all out to everybody, and I heard nothing, like nothing. Nobody. There was just crickets. And so I wasn't going to give up, though. So I was like, well, all right, I better call everybody and make sure they got it. Maybe I didn't put enough stamps on it. I'm almost completely oblivious to why they're not calling me back. Like, why wouldn't they? I have a logo, I mean, and it was like a hand-drawn logo. I went to Kinko's and they photocopied it a million times. Like, it was crazy. So I end up going to getting on the phone, and I start calling them one at a time, and they're all telling me to leave them alone and just no, sorry, you're not good enough, you don't know enough people, you're not experienced enough, you wasted your money going to college for this, and like I just got just so much rejection, and coming from somebody that was horrible in dealing with rejection. I mean, I just was so badly bruised by the end of every day. I'd be in the fetal position, in front of the TV, just not able to move, knowing that I had to get up the next morning and do it all over again. But I had set this goal I just couldn't let go of, and so I'd call everybody again. And a couple of days in, I got a big break. There was a guy that was a musical director that I called up, and he told me that he wasn't able to help me because I wasn't in the union. Because he looked me up. He got my package, looked me up. I wasn't in the union. Sorry, I can't talk to you. If you're a member of the union, I'll definitely point you in the right direction. So I ran over to the union and I told them. I said, hey, John told me I have to be join the union. And so they said, oh, you must be you must have gotten the gig. You must be the new bass player. So I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. I must have gotten the gig. I guess he was doing a show or something. Who knows? And so I was able to join that way, and I called him back, and he recommended talking to all the different bass players, who, again, would not give me the time of day. And so it wasn't until I realized that, like, oh, okay, well, I have nothing to give them, so let me come up with something that so I can offer some value to them. And so that was the first lesson. I was going to add some value to these folks. And so I told everybody I wrote for Bass Player magazine. I was going to write an article about being on Broadway, and the ego of a musician, like absolutely everybody wanted to be a part of this article. So I interviewed everybody. I sat in on all the shows, copied the music, talked to all the. I mean, I was in for every single show, in the pit, watching the show. And then I realized, like, I don't write for Bass Player magazine, and now all these people are expecting this article. I called Bass Player magazine, and I told them, I said, hey, I'm really good friends with all these people on Broadway. What do you think? And by some miracle, they agreed to have me write this article, and they paid me $400 for it. And so that was my first in. Like, great. Now I got this article out. The article came out, and I sent it a copy to everybody. Thank you very much for being involved. I'd love to sub for your show. And that was this idea of like, I'll give you this, but you have to give me that. And you know, in life it just doesn't work that way. And so of course everybody just said no. They wanted nothing to do with me again. I didn't exist all over again. But there was one guy that was very appreciative, and so he wanted to, you know, he wanted to thank me, and so I offered to take him out to dinner, and we went out to dinner, and we started talking about some stuff, and as it ends up, his father was a bass player, and this article meant so much to him because his father used to play with, he was a studio musician, he played with Bob Dylan, Jim Croce, and all these other guys, and never got the notoriety that he wanted, that he should have gotten as this, you know, well-known bass player. And I offered to write an article about his dad. And the idea was, like, all of a sudden, like, I was like, no, like, I'm the only one that could take the thorn out of this guy's paw, and I have to do it. This is not about getting the gig. This is about doing the right thing. And I wrote the article. And I never followed up with him. I never asked him if he, you know, if I could do the show, because I didn't want to make it about that. And a couple months after the article came out, he actually reached out to me and said, he's like, I'd like to give you a shot. And he gave me a shot, and that was the first time I ever played on Broadway. And it all stemmed from this idea of giving with wanting nothing in return, and just kind of, you know, having faith that things will work itself out.
Yeah, I know you talked about that in your book, and you've talked about that in some other writings. That this idea of I'm just to give without, well, I guess what we commonly call in business ROI, right? What's my return on this investment? And how do you describe that? Let's say you go to a client now. I mean, you can tell them this story, but and then say, hey, this has to not just be about you. And then not only that, but to be able to have this idea of giving and not expect some, you know, if I, you know, like in the financial world, well, gosh, if I put in this much, I'm going to get this much back. How do you navigate that and share that? So that, you know, not only you're embracing it, but they're embracing it as well.
It's depending on the environment. It's a very difficult concept to grab hold of, especially with social media. Everybody talks about social media ROI, and it's hard not to. Like, you know, we spend a lot of time on it, and you're for some reason you have to equate a sale with it, so you feel better about yourself or whatever it is. And you can still calculate ROI on something like social media, but for me, like the way I see my return on investment is how much time did I spend, you know, multiplied by how many new friends do I have, you know, and not friends like in the Facebook, you know, sense of the word with a capital F, like a lowercase f, like how many actual friends, you know, people that I know that I've communicated with, that I'm engaged with, that I'm friends with, that are not considered followers or pluses or circles or, you know, these other weird terms that you know, but actual friends, like people that I could call right now, people that I know their marital status or their kids' names, or, you know, like actual friends. And that's my return on investment, because that's what it's all about for me, is about connecting with people, making friends, and building relationships, and then from that something good will come. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's gonna, you know, fill my pocket or empty my pocket, but I know I'm going to learn something. I know I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be better off because I know somebody, you know, that I didn't know yesterday, and I'm okay with that. You know, if you move into a new neighborhood, you're not going to, you know, start ringing doorbells and trying to sell everybody in the neighborhood and only be friends with the ones that are willing to buy. You know, you want to be friends with everybody in the neighborhood, and then maybe somebody will, you know, help you out or do something nice for you or whatever it is, but you know, you certainly don't want to make enemies on your block. You want to be friends and connect with people and have a relationship, and, you know, invite people over for a barbecue, and, you know, just build those relationships. And social media is not that much different. The problem is most companies don't get that. You know, most people don't understand that, because there's this idea of you know, a monetary exchange that really kind of dirties the water a little bit. I have, you know, I went on a trip to Boston not too long ago, or New York. I think it was New York, not too long ago, and I happened to be flying JetBlue, and my flight was late. It was 2 hours late, and we were supposed to be leaving in 5 minutes, and the plane wasn't even there yet. And so I tweeted to JetBlue, just kind of joking around, if you know, if we're supposed to be leaving in 5 minutes and the plane's not here, is that a bad sign? just kind of kidding around. And they responded almost immediately, tell us the flight number and we'll see how we can help. So I was like, wow, well, that's pretty cool. Like they got back so right away, but it's businessy response. So I responded back like, don't worry about it. Like this kind of thing happens. If you're flying bad weather, it's going to happen. Don't it's there's nothing you can do about it. I know you're just trying to make me feel better. I'm fine. I'm reading. I'm relaxed. It's not a big deal. And so they got back. They said, well, no. How can we make this up to you? And so I was like, wow, all right. Well, now they've gone the extra mile, but they're still just trying to keep me happy and everything else. So I said, okay, well, if you're asking me how you can make it up to me, I'd like to fly the plane. And so they responded like, well, we can't let you fly the plane. So well, no, I'm not saying I don't want to take off and land. That looks really hard. But certainly I can do this a couple times. And they're like, no, you cannot fly the plane. And so but like what else you got? And so we had negotiated over the next half hour down to unlimited snacks, which I'm pretty sure they give everybody anyway. But like I felt like I won something. And so I got unlimited snacks. So of course I get on the plane and then I'm flying and I took a picture with a big handful of snacks because of course I took them up on their offer and then I tweeted it back and it was just this great communication that was just awesome. It was very human. It was very it just really really made me feel good about about being late and it actually kind of made me I was a little bummed when the plane did show up because I had to turn off the phone. A week later I'm flying home and I tweeted checking into my flight whatever and they instantly had gotten someone had tweeted back we made sure to bring extra snacks for this flight too.
Oh wow!
And how cool is that? And so now fast forward, a month or two later, I'm flying up to Boston, and I didn't even check any other flight. I just went, let me see when JetBlue's flights are, and I flew JetBlue just because they were my friends. Now it could have been 10 different people that have been tweeting me. They have software that can keep track of our conversations. Like I get it. I know it's it's not like there's a guy named Bob there that's talking about, man, this guy Mark was really great. It's nothing like that. But we just had this connection where I feel like I'm friends with that company, and so of course I'm going to fly with them given the choice. I want to fly with my friends. I don't want to fly with with some complete stranger. And so there is a return on investment on it. But like if they were asking me for a credit card in order to maintain this conversation, they wouldn't have made a friend.
Absolutely. And I watched a little bit of an HOA the other day, and David Ermelin and Anna Hoffman made this comment, and I think this is exactly what you're talking about. She said, "Social is a conversation." She says, and it's not a one-way conversation. It's a normal conversation, and she says many times that I don't know if she, talking about this idea where business will communicate to their customers, and then she says they need to communicate with them.
Right.
And totally different, right? One is a communication. The other one is I'm going to tell, like the old way of advertising. I'm going to tell you what you need to think about my company, and this is where you need to get it. And the other is let's have a conversation, and you say develop relationships.
Right. Yeah. One of the best lessons I learned was I had written a blog post that got some for somebody else's blog that was it was a little polarizing, and it had drawn a lot of feedback, and some of it was really negative, and I got beat up pretty bad on it, like with the name calling and stuff like that, and my initial reaction was like, we should probably delete, some of these comments, and like anybody else, like, geez, somebody would say something bad about you, of course you don't want to hear it, and it wasn't like bad, they were just, just calling me names and stuff, but rather than deleting it, rather than getting ugly about it, I decided to embrace it. And so one of the comments, which I won't share here because I don't want to have to change the rating of this hangout. I put in my testimonials page, and I included it into my About Us page to as a way to embrace it, as a way to remind me that I'm still working on things. And it was really funny. Like I got a kick out of it. I started reaching out to these folks and just being okay with that you feel that way. And I didn't turn everybody, but I turned most of the people that left a comment. But what that said more than that was it told everybody else that was watching what was going on that, hey, this is an open environment. This guy is willing to take the good with the bad. Like he's not, he's not like it's not this you play by my rules or you go home. It's it's just all it's a free for all. We can all kind of talk and all kind of communicate. I welcome all that, and because of that, I built a much tighter relationship with with a lot of people that I communicate, my friends, my friends online. And I wish companies would do that, because companies if you look at any of like any of the major companies, most of their Twitter accounts are so people can complain. TD Bank, the lines are too long, or you did this, or you got somebody behind the thing that was obnoxious. JetBlue, my flight late, and like everybody, like 90% of it are people that are complaining. And if you're just the guy, private message me and I'll try to fix it for you, and then you take it offline, and then you come back and say, glad we can come up with a solution for you. Like we don't get to see, the way that you acted, how you fixed it, what the solution was. And I think there's a value to seeing a company do that, seeing a company go, oh my God, I cannot believe that you've been online for a half hour, you're dealing with this, or dealing with that, what can we do? I was online at Chipotle one day, and the line was it was like a half hour long, like it was like wrapped around the building. And so I had tweeted, I was like, oh, it looks like I'm going to be at Chipotle for a half hour. And whoever was manning their account wrote back, well, if you're going to be around for a half hour, why don't we chat while we're waiting?
Oh, wow.
And we just had this conversation back and forth. Like that's the kind of stuff. Rather than saying, I'm sorry, let me call and see what I can do about it. You can't do anything about it. It's a line. I just say, like rather than trying to play that role, just be okay with the fact that you're not perfect, that, if somebody's unhappy, how to, let everybody see you fix it.
Yeah, I think that comes down to that word that companies, well, a couple, but that it's really tough for them to embrace. But when a consumer sees it, is empathy, right? Oh wow, they understand my pain, and
right.
They're willing to communicate and ask how they can to kind of take care of that. I mean, JetBlue was perfect in that, right? They said, how can we take care of you? And then you have this conversation. Of course, you're like, hey, let me black fly the plane. And they're like,
right. I don't know if I would recommend that, but
HE double hockey sticks, but they were willing to have a conversation with you about it.
Right.
And
yeah.
I just
absolutely. I think that and there's such a benefit to that. Everybody's going to see the problem because they tweeted the problem. Like the line's too long or the flight's late or whatever it is. So everybody gets to see that. And so you're hiding the positive spin on that. The way that you fixed it is the part that you're going to hide, so they don't know how it was fixed and how caring you are and how much, and we all just assume that, you took it offline and just said, and you did whatever you had to do, gave them a $5 credit and moved on, as opposed to, keeping that conversation going of we're committed to making you a friend and not just someone who tolerates us as a company.
Right, and if they have you as a friend, they will come. You'll come back and you'll tell that story to someone else, right?
Of course, you'll share the story. Like I can't tell you how many times I tweeted how much I love JetBlue, and not only that, but I went and flew another time and I accidentally got the wrong dates. I got the dates wrong. And I reached out to them on Twitter and said, "Hey, it's your BFF. I got the wrong dates. Is there any way that you can pull some strings, or what's the magic word, or how many times do I have to say, pretty please for you to change the dates for me, so I don't get hit with a $100 fee each way?" And within an hour, they came back and said, not only did they give me get the dates changed, but they had, oh, and by the way, we got a little surprise for you. We chose your seats for you, and they got me the seat in the front row with the, with the extra leg room and the whole thing. So, and I didn't even ask for it. And again, it's like little things like that, and they did that publicly, with the exception of, come offline and give us the flight numbers and stuff like that. But But the solution we was all public, so everybody got to see that, and that's brilliant marketing. Now that's a way to really get your message out there and prove that like you live that message. This is not just, we didn't just hire a PR firm to come up with, some cushy little saying that we're going to pretend to live by, but you can actually watch us in action.
Wow, and like you were saying, if you don't put that out in the public, they don't get to see the good part of it, right?
Right. They just see the complaining.
Right. That idea. Well, let's transition into. I know we have this one book, and then you've got a book coming out in December, and it may have a controversial title. My wife had read the title. I said, "Hey, I'm interviewing Marc Ensign." He said, "Well, oh, okay, tomorrow." And she says, "I said, here's the title of his book," and she saw it on the on my laptop, and she says, "Be a dick." Kind of and I said, "Well, you got to understand, this is the capital D. This is a person's name."
All right.
But talk a little bit about that, and I know that this has been a process. You've talked to me about this a little bit before. About
Sure.
This has been a really tough thing to walk through to finish this book. It's been a real, but it's been something. It's a story about your neighbor you met in Florida.
Well, first I have to acknowledge that you actually said the name of the book, because like a couple times you've called it the Richard book.
Yeah.
So I'm very impressed. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's it's a story about my neighbor. When I had moved down to Tampa from New Jersey a little over a year ago, about a year and a half ago, I met this guy down the street, and he just was extraordinary. I mean, the first time I met him, first thing he did was he introduced himself to my kids, getting on one knee, eye to eye, so he can really talk to them and make them feel good, important, make them feel, cared for. Offered us a ton of value, giving us, really kind of holding our hand through the process of moving into the neighborhood. Connected us with, a bunch of people that we need to be connected with. Invited us into his home with open arms. The guy's extremely humble. He had about a dozen Emmys hanging on the wall in the corner of his living room. I mean, just everything about him was just extraordinary. And so at one point I decided that I wanted to do something. I wanted to make some changes, and so I started I had this guy living down the street that's just amazing, and does and it was that little he was like a mentor. He'd become a mentor unknowingly to either one of us. And I had that, I want to be like him when I grow up kind of thing. And so I was like, well, let me, that's I mean, he has the things that I want. He's got the, he's, incredibly successful in his career. I mean, he's really made a dent on this world with what he's done. Great relationship with his kids and his wife, and just the great neighbor. Everybody, he's the guy, the ambassador of our neighborhood. That people just look up to and just love, and gets invited to everything. And so I want to be that guy. And so I started writing out all these different personality traits and things that I really kind of connected with him on, and everything from being forgiving to being welcoming to being engaged, an engaged listener, and all these different things. And I came up with 12, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to try to live under this umbrella for the next year. What if I took one a month for the next year? And what would that do for me? And the truth is that I screwed up a lot, and I gave up a ton, and it was really hard, and it was awkward, and it was fun, and it was all these different things, but I saw I saw results from this. I mean, I was, you're talking to a guy that's very introverted, very shy. Walking into a room now, I can, I'm the guy that lights up the room because I'm not afraid to talk to people, because I had gone through a process of 30 days of being forced to, walk into a mall and just start conversations. See if I can get people to tell me things that they would normally not tell anybody. Just to flex that muscle, sharpen that saw. And so it was kind of this social experiment, and at one point, I just come to the realization as I'm journaling all some of this, that I really should write a book about it. I should really write down these things, and And of course, like the marketing gods smiled upon me, and his name being Dick, like it just, if his name was, Joe, like I probably would have done the same thing because he's just an extraordinary guy. Um, but like it's just it's from a marketing perspective, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. His name really is Dick. He's actually a person. And it's just been an incredible experience. And now that I'm kind of writing this book, which is torture for me, because it's very personal stories and really trying to dig into into my past and see where I went wrong in all these different areas of my life and how I used this opportunity to try to fix some of them, which I'm still doing. My wife actually mentioned last week that it would be in my best interest to start over again with the virtues and, and do them again. And she's right. Like it's like it's a never-ending thing. I could do it I could do it in 12 weeks, or I could do it in 12 months or 12 days. But like always trying to implement this into my life, and so it's just been an incredible experience, and one that I just can't wait to share. But I will definitely be a puddle by the time this thing is written.
Well, one of the important, I think you start with this in the post. And I think the title was "I want to be a dick to everyone I meet online from now on," or really close. But was be humble, and I know, and I'll just share a personal experience with you. We had, in getting together interviews, because I've done a few now. You try to make sure you communicate with someone before, and just get all your T's and lined up, and so we had a meeting or a pre-meeting, and we missed the time, and I was there and you weren't, and I said, hey, and of course you messaged me back on Google Plus, and you said, hey, I need to basically be publicly shamed because I missed this meeting. I apologize,
Right.
But you sent it publicly, and so I sent you a private message. Hey, you sent me a public message. Were you trying to intend to do that? And you're like, yeah, I was. I need to be publicly shamed about that. But that
Right.
kind of engagement and conversation. I mean, when we admit our faults, and not only just to one another, but like you're saying in public, people see that and go, okay, this guy's sincere. And I know, I'm sure your clients see that and see and kind of watch that. And to me, that was like, wow, this guy. I hope this guy's a friend of mine for the rest of my life. All right, give him a call, whatever, But that is so attractive to other people, and I don't know if sometimes we realize that, but when we're humble and when we're willing to just say, well, I messed that one up,
Right.
We engage others.
Yeah, I don't know what we're so afraid of. Like I mean, it could have been so easy to tell you that, like, oh my God, I had a family emergency, and so and you would have been okay with it. And even if I just reached out and just said, hey, sorry about that, I totally blew it, you probably would have been okay with that too. I know you well enough that you wouldn't have been calling me a Richard with a lowercase d, as you would call it. But it was wanting. I guess I did that because I really wanted you to know that I was sincere. That that it wasn't that you weren't important, or I didn't. I literally just blew it. I thought we were supposed to call at 10 o'clock, and it was 9:30, and I just completely blew it, and wanted to make sure that there's no question in your mind that that was just an oopsies, and it wasn't, it was nothing more than that. And so yeah, and there's a value to that. I know when we can do that, when you can kind of let your guard down and just be naked for a second and just say, hey, this is what happened. And it's something that I'm still constantly learning. There are times when I walk away from a situation and go like, I definitely should have owned that one. That was all me, and and here I am. I turned it around or did something stupid. And so it's a constant struggle. It's a constant struggle to try to keep bringing that into your life, and that's why when my wife and I were talking, like, we should do, you should do the book again, because there is that need to re-energize yourself, constantly learn this stuff. I don't really think there is an end to this thing.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever conquer that, right? It's one of the,
Right.
we're human and we're frail. But like you were saying, that whole JetBlue situation, right? They were willing to embrace that mistake and walk through it, as
Right.
opposed to put it off to the side and kind of hide it. And that's what you've kind of done on your, I know, on your website and with this book. And as we kind of come around to the end of this, and as you kind of walk through this interview, is there anything else that you thought, wow, I just missed, sharing about this, or about your new book, or anything else that you'd want to, talk about?
No, just I mean, again, I just what I always say, like what I'm always looking for, like I'm always looking for what I call DFFs, my digital friends forever. Like people that I am constantly on the lookout to make friends. I don't care how many people are following you, and like I don't care I don't care what my numbers are. I don't care what like I just want people to talk to. I thrive off of that, and and people that reach out or leave or comment or become part of the conversation. I always try to make sure that all my blog posts or everything that I write is with this idea of welcoming people to jump in and add your 2 cents. We can figure this out together, or we can or just add to that conversation. And I can't tell you how many times that somebody's brought something to the table that I was like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. Interesting. I mean, the Pretty Ugly thing was such an eye-opener for me. At 40 years old, or 41, or however old I was when I wrote it last year, which I just gave away my age, but I guess it's okay because it makes me sound. My wife says I'm distinguished, so I think she's just being nice. But one thing that I learned from that, like here I am, 40 years old, and I still think that I'm the only one that goes through this. And I was outing myself in this moment of vulnerability that I actually wrote in my journal. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put this out there. And to the point where my mom had read it, and she called that afternoon, and she was crying because she's like, how come you never told me this? I didn't know that you had been living with this, or like how much this hurt, back when I was 8 years old. Up until present day almost, and there's nothing you could have done. Like that was this was just something that had happened that I just kind of consumed. But again, at 40 years old, I didn't realize that I was not the only one. And so when I started getting these stories and the comments and the people really connecting with this message, like that just was such an amazing thing to me that made me feel like part of the human race. Like okay, we all have this thing, and so now how many other kids are out there that think that they're the only one that's pretty ugly, or maybe they're overweight, or maybe they get made fun of, they're called four eyes, or maybe a parent unknowingly said something, gave them a nickname that really hurt them, and then here they are 20, 30, 40 years old, still hearing that nickname behind their head, and it's kind of put this glass ceiling over themselves. Like I love that. Like I never would have learned all that, and I never would have been able to take this little message that I had and expand it if it wasn't for the community. Like this is it's as much theirs as it is mine, kind of thing. And I love that. So that's what I'm always looking for: people that can add to the conversation. This is not one of those blogs that you want to go to and just read and then walk away. I want you to be involved in it.
So you truly want a conversation. You want people to be engaged.
Absolutely, no question.
Well, you're going to finish up. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I was probably going to rattle on about something else.
Okay, so how can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you? I'm sure everybody's interested in this Pretty Ugly project because I'm a parent, and I remember as a kid, just a small, kind of side story. Some kid had named me Troylet the toilet. So, and
Right.
I still remember that, right? I mean, these things are 40 years ago or whatever, and you still like that's
Right.
yesterday.
And if you and the thing is that if you reached out to the person that said that, they would have no recollection of it. Like they wouldn't remember because but they probably have their own pretty ugly story that they do remember. It's these kids just do stuff just because like they're just being stupid. Like they're kids, they don't know, and they don't know that the effect they're having on I mean, I know the person that said that did the whole pretty ugly thing, she'd be mortified if she knew that she had said that and what it did for me and how much it changed my life. Now, I wouldn't change anything about it because it's made me who I am or whatever, and I'm beyond it now. But I can't. It makes me wonder, what have I said that have affected kids back then, or even my kids accidentally, or I overheard something or said something, or unknowingly, they misunderstood something, and what that meant to them and how they translated it. And so you got to be so careful, and so you're not going to make that go away. Like, I understand the old bullying projects and all this other kind of stuff. Like, you're not going to make bullying go away. It's always going to be here. But if you can then hit the approach the kids that are getting bullied, or the kids that are translating this or blowing this up into something big, and tell them it's okay, and here's how you get past it, and here's my story, and here's what you can do about yours. I think there's so much value in that.
And I think what it does, right, is that whole idea we're not alone.
Right.
I'm not alone. I'm not in this ship by myself. There are others who've gone through it. Okay. Because then that ostracizes you, right? Oh, if nobody else is dealing with it, it's just me.
Right.
So it's called the Pretty Ugly Project. Will that be?
Yeah. So the website is theprettyuglyproject.com, and you can go there and you can actually you can even submit a story. It's I mean, you're going to see a lot of nuts and bolts laying all over the ground and stuff like that. I'm still in the process of developing and writing content for it. It's certainly not where it needs to be, and I haven't released it, or you're actually the first person I've even told about it. Outside of my wife.
An exclusive.
But you got the exclusive, right? And but I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be done in order to start the conversation. So check it out, and if it's something that like if you want to submit your story, I mean, ideally I'd love to have like a book, like a Chicken Soup for the Soul type of book, with everybody's stories of hey, here's the thing that I remember that hurt me, and how I triumphed past it, how I got past it, and or even if you're still struggling with it, and just so we can all see that, like, even the bully gets bullied, and so then there's a deeper understanding. So if you have a story to tell, I'd love to hear it. So that's the Pretty Ugly Project. Then my blog is markensign.com, which is I think it's on the little thingy over here somewhere, right there.
Yeah, right down there.
And so I just I love to join the conversation. I'm on Twitter, at Marc Ensign, and Google Plus, obviously, and all the other social media hoo-ha that's out there.
Well, okay, and then what about your new book? I know do you have a link on your website?
If you want to be notified about the new book, if you go to iwanttobeadick.com, that's where you can sign up for updates on when it's coming out, and kind of be notified, join the launch team. Like, I'm going to need a little muscle out there to help get it out there, and just be involved in that. That would be great. The tentative release date is early December. It really kind of depends. I got some, a couple of, publishers have reached out interested in possibly picking it up, which is, unexpected. But if that's the case, then it might be delayed a little bit. Like, who knows? But it's still in that process. I'm still massaging it a little as well.
Oh, hearing from your editor or whatever, huh?
What's that? Yeah, well, it's no. I'm actually my worst critic, so everybody keeps telling me that it's great, leave it the way it is, and like and I can't, like, I just I'm just constantly massaging it and getting it right, because I think it's just such an important message. It's such a personal story for me, and I really want to release this out and not have like version 2.0. Like, I want to release this out and just have it, like I'd be so proud of this. Is exactly what I had intended, is exactly what was in my head, when I put it out there. And it's so close, but it's not, I don't know if it'll ever get there, but at some point I got to decide.
Well, books are abandoned. They're not never finished. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, hey, on behalf of the Significant Series and our team and the Art of Giving and myself, I appreciate you coming on today. I appreciate hearing your story. And I know if everybody was following along with the comments, I am an interviewer. I'm not Mia Voss that can just do 14 things at once. I'm engaged by her, so when I do an interview, I'm going to need somebody else piping in my ear eventually to go through comments as when it's live, because I'm just pretty engaged with who I'm talking to. So I apologize.
I'm pretty sure it's Mia's cat that's running the.
It could be, absolutely.
Is it Bob? I think, right.
But just on behalf of myself, I just want to thank you for spending time with me today, Mark. You could have done something else, but you're willing to sit on the side of a microphone and be interviewed by me.
I appreciate it. Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you later.
All right, you got it, Troy.